Born to be my sister's spare parts factory. Blood at 7, bone marrow. At 8, a kidney. At 16, when I got pregnant. At 22, my mother said God had finally answered my infertile sister's prayers and I'd be handing over my baby. After I refused and fled with my daughter, she forged adoption papers and mobilized the entire church to take my child through the courts. When I told my mother I was pregnant at 22, she didn't congratulate me. She told me God had finally answered my sister's prayers and I would be giving her my baby. I wasn't even supposed to exist. My parents only wanted one child, but Alicia came out with more medical issues than a pharmaceutical disclaimer, so they had me, their little spare parts factory. Growing up, I donated blood so often the nurses knew my favorite foods better than my parents. Bone marrow at 8, a kidney at 16. My childhood bedroom looked like a medical supply closet with posters. Dad just nodded along, same as he had my whole life. Alicia's latest malfunction, her uterus, 8 years of trying, 0 babies. Meanwhile, I got knocked up by accident, and suddenly, I'm Mary carrying the second coming. Except the wise men are my mother's prayer group, and they're bringing casseroles instead of myrrh. Mom found the test before I could even decide what to do. One minute, I'm staring at 2 pink lines, the next she's bursting through my door like the Kool-Aid man. Alicia's miracle, she shrieked, clutching that pea stick like Moses with the tablets. By dinner, she'd already mentally redecorated Alicia's guest room into a nursery. Alicia sat there, looking like someone had handed her a winning lottery ticket covered in someone else's blood. I mean, I am more financially stable, she said, already rubbing my stomach like I was her personal Buddha statue. And emotionally ready, it just makes sense. Louis, my boyfriend of 2 years, nodded along like a dashboard bobblehead. I don't want kids anyway, he shrugged. This works out perfectly. Classic Louis. Avoiding conflict like it's cardio. I felt like I was drowning in a room full of people discussing my lung capacity. 3 weeks later, Mom invited the family lawyer to Sunday dinner. Between the pot roast and apple pie, she casually mentioned the private adoption papers she'd started. Apparently, I'd be moving in with Alicia, so she could bond with her baby. My mom had already told the entire congregation about one of my daughters expecting, carefully omitting which daughter was actually pregnant. Lying without lying, like a holy loophole. Alicia started calling herself Mama and showing up at my apartment with prenatal vitamins and name books. She'd already picked out Alice if it's a girl, after our grandmother. My prenatal appointments became a circus. Mom and Alicia were talking over me, telling the doctor about their baby's family medical history, while I sat there like a decorative incubator. The baby shower was the worst. I walked into a party I didn't plan, for a baby everyone assumed wasn't mine. The banner read, "Congratulations, Alicia," and the cake had a stork delivering a baby. I discovered Mom had told my boss I was relocating after delivery. While trying to find a quiet spot, I found something that night. My mom's medical folder on me. Every donation, every procedure, highlighted and tabbed like a twisted scrapbook. The final page? A printout about Save Your Siblings, with notes in Mom's handwriting about God's plan. When Alicia started calling me auntie at a church potluck, something in me snapped like a overstretched maternity band. I called Louis 17 times before he answered. "Can I stay with you?" I begged. "I guess," he sighed, like I'd asked to store a couch. I changed doctors, blocked my family on everything, and tried to breathe. Louis's apartment smelled like gym socks and broken dreams, but at least no one was measuring my belly like I was livestock. For 2 months, I saved every penny I could while searching for my own place. "If you keep that baby, we're done," Louis announced one night, casual as ordering pizza. "I told you I don't want kids." So I found my own place. A studio so small I could cook dinner and go to the bathroom without moving, but it was mine. I found young parent support groups, secondhand cribs, and something resembling hope. My daughter arrived on a Tuesday, 3:47 a.m. Just me, her, and a very patient nurse named Brenda. 3 weeks later, they found me. Mom's PI must have followed me from work. I heard a knock, and through the peephole, I saw Mom at my door with Alicia, their pastor, and enough righteous fury to power a small country. "We're here to bring you both home," she announced, like I'd simply been on an extended sleepover. I didn't open the door. The next day, police showed up for a wellness check. Apparently, I had postpartum psychosis and was endangering an infant. My daughter cooed at the officers while I showed them my clean apartment and full fridge. Then came CPS, citing unsafe living conditions. The social worker seemed confused when she found a clean apartment with a happy baby. Mom told everyone I'd stolen Alicia's baby. My voicemail filled with cousins calling me Satan's handmaiden, except for my cousin Jenny, who texted, "What they're doing is fucked up. Here if you need anything." Alicia had a breakdown and was hospitalized. Mom blamed me for that too. Someone started leaving baby killer flyers under my door. The church prayer chain mobilized like a spiritual SWAT team. Yesterday, a process server knocked. Grandparents' rights petition. Mom's claiming I'm an unfit mother, that Alicia deserves her miracle, that God himself wants my daughter raised by someone else. My lawyer says their case is bullshit, but defending it will cost thousands I don't have. But they have no idea what I'm willing to do to stay a mother. It took a turn I never expected. I sat there staring at the legal papers, my hands shaking as I read through the accusations. 3 lawyers. Mother had hired 3 lawyers. The words blurred together. History of mental instability, unfit environment, best interests of the child. They'd cited my therapy sessions from when I was 16, the ones after the kidney donation. When I'd told the therapist I felt like a walking organ bank. Mother had kept those records too, apparently. My daughter started crying from her crib, and I set the papers down to pick her up. The next morning, I needed formula. The grocery store was supposed to be safe, just a quick trip while the baby slept in her carrier. I was comparing prices when I heard that voice, the one that used to sing me lullabies before medical procedures. Mother stood in the checkout line, her cart full of organic vegetables and judgment. She looked directly at me and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm praying for you to do the right thing, sweetheart, for everyone's sake." Her breathing had this strange quality to it, almost like hissing. The other shoppers stared. The cashier paused mid-scan. I grabbed the cheapest formula and headed for self-checkout. In the parking lot, I couldn't help myself. The words came tumbling out, all the anger and hurt from years of being harvested for parts. I confronted her by her car, my voice rising with each accusation. "You kept medical files on me like I was livestock. You told the whole church I stole Alicia's baby." But the more I spoke, the more I sounded exactly like what she'd written in those papers. Unhinged, unstable, dangerous. 3 women from her Bible study walked past, whispering to each other. One pulled out her phone. Mother just stood there, calm as a saint, letting me dig my own grave. Monday morning, my boss called me into his office. The coffee shop's ancient pipes had burst over the weekend, flooding the storage room. "Your mother's husband owns that construction company, right?" he asked, scrolling through his phone. "We need someone who can start immediately." I knew what this meant. One word from Mother about my concerning behavior, and I'd be updating my resume. My boss wasn't a bad guy, but he had a business to save. Mother had found another pressure point. 3 days later, my daughter's temperature spiked during my shift. 101.5 on the forehead thermometer I kept in the diaper bag. I watched the clock, calculating. My break was in 2 hours. If I left now, that was job abandonment. If I waited, my phone buzzed. A text from mother. I could be there in 5 minutes to help with the baby. Just say the word. She knew. Somehow. She always knew. I looked at my daughter's flushed face, then at my boss dealing with the construction crew. I clocked out. The emergency room visit took 4 hours. My daughter's fever broke with infantile, just a normal childhood illness. But now there was a medical record. Documentation that I'd brought her in for a minor fever, which mother would spin as either neglect for waiting too long or hysteria for overreacting. As I sat in the waiting room filling out paperwork, I heard that hissing breath again. Mother appeared in the doorway clutching her purse. I was just so worried when I heard. I had to come check on my grandbaby. The nurses smiled at her concern. Such a devoted grandmother. By the time I got home, I'd lost my job. My boss texted that he understood family comes first, but needed someone more reliable. The construction work would start tomorrow, mother's husband's crew handling everything. That same evening, my landlord slipped a notice under my door. Noise complaint from an anonymous neighbor about the baby crying. First warning, 3 strikes and I'd be evicted. Lewis showed up an hour later demanding his gaming console back. Everything was happening at once, like mother had pulled some invisible string. The church Facebook group had my picture up by Thursday. Someone had photographed me crying in my car after cleaning out my work locker. The caption read, "Praying for this young mother clearly struggling with mental health issues." 43 comments, half offering prayers, half suggesting someone should check on that poor baby. Mother's comment was perfectly crafted. As her mother, I'm doing everything I can to help. Some situations require tough love. The pediatrician's office called the next week. The mother keeping detailed medical files on her donations like some kind of twisted scrapbook makes me wonder what else she's been documenting all these years. Was every single interaction calculated for future use? They needed Alicia's kidney donation records for my daughter's file, family medical history. I'd managed to avoid my sister for months, but now I had to call her. She answered on the first ring, like she'd been waiting. Her voice was different, softer, but somehow more unsettling. I've been praying you'd call. The baby needs her complete medical history. Our medical history. She emphasized our, like my daughter was community property. Mother started her next phase of attack through the family. She told my aunts that my behavior was exactly like after the kidney surgery. She reminded them how I'd been paranoid and ungrateful at 16, needing therapy because I couldn't handle God's plan for our family. The prayer chain became evidence collection. Every text I sent asking them to stop could be screenshot, reframed, used against me. When I tried to document mother's harassment, posting about it in a single parent support group online, someone reported me for cyberbullying grieving grandparents. At my new job, a night shift at a warehouse that didn't require references, I discovered mother had listed herself as my emergency contact years ago and never been removed from the system. She'd been calling HR, expressing concern about my mental state. The HR manager pulled me aside. "Your mother says you've been exhibiting concerning behavior. She's worried about your child." I explained the situation, but how do you make "my mother wants to steal my baby from my infertile sister" sound reasonable? The sleep deprivation hit hard. 3 consecutive nights of colic had me mixing up orders at the warehouse. I put shipping labels on the wrong boxes, sent inventory to incorrect addresses. My supervisor said I seemed out of it, maybe on something. 2 customers complained. Another note in my file. Another piece of evidence mother could use. Then Sarah, my best friend since middle school, stopped returning my calls. When I finally cornered her at the grocery store, she looked exhausted. "My husband says I need to stop getting involved in your family drama. He's threatening divorce if I keep helping you. I believe you, I do, but I can't lose my marriage over this." She hugged me quickly and left. I stood there in the cereal aisle, realizing mother had found a way to isolate me from everyone who might have stood by me. The other young mothers in my apartment complex started crossing the street when they saw me coming. I found out why when someone forwarded me screenshots from a local mom's Facebook group. "Anyone know about that unstable girl in Building C? I heard she stole her sister's baby. Someone should call CPS. My pastor says the grandmother is trying to help, but she's refusing." Dozens of comments from people who'd never met me, all certain they knew my story. Mother's lies were becoming accidentally true through sheer repetition. She told people she'd tried to help with my rent, and by coincidence, Lewis had sent me money for bills that same week. The Venmo transaction had a timestamp that seemed to confirm her story. When I proved she'd lied about me agreeing to adoption papers, I had to admit I'd Googled adoption agencies in my first trimester, when I was scared and alone. Those searches became evidence of my indecisiveness and inability to commit to motherhood. My only friend at work, an older woman named Bert, who worked the forklift, admitted why she couldn't testify on my behalf. "Your mom's husband is writing my son's recommendation letter for his contractor's license. I'm sorry, honey. I got my own family to think about." Even strangers were getting pulled into mother's web. The worst part was how reasonable mother made everything sound. When I laughed with relief after a successful pediatric checkup, my daughter was hitting all her milestones despite everything. Someone photographed me in the parking lot. The image circulated with captions about me partying while child was sick. Every normal moment became evidence of abnormality in mother's hands. One evening, I found a text from mother that made my blood run cold. "You can end this anytime. Just do what's best for everyone." I stared at those words, understanding the weight behind them. She believed she was saving my daughter. She believed Alicia deserved this baby. She believed I was just being selfish, just like when I'd complained about the blood draws, the bone marrow, the kidney. In her mind, I'd always been the difficult one, the ungrateful one, the one who didn't understand God's plan. I looked at my daughter sleeping in her secondhand crib, in our tiny apartment with the water stains on the ceiling, and the neighbor who complained about crying. I thought about Alicia's house with its nursery already decorated, about the college fund they'd start, about the opportunities I couldn't provide. For just a moment, in the exhaustion and isolation, I wondered if mother was right. Then my daughter opened her eyes and smiled at me, and I knew. They could take everything else, but not her. Not this time. Mother started dating my elderly neighbor Mr. Chen the following week. I noticed her car in the visitor parking spot every evening, watched her carry groceries up the stairs to his apartment. She brought him homemade soup, helped with his medications, listened to his stories about his late wife. Within days, she had a spare key. She'd wave at me from his balcony while I loaded my daughter into the car for daycare. During one encounter in the hallway, she mentioned my favorite childhood book casually, the one she used to read when I was sick after donations. The message was clear. She remembered everything about me, every vulnerability. The social worker assigned to our case interviewed us separately about the hospital incident. Mother gave her version first, describing how she'd rushed to support her struggling daughter, only to be rejected. She produced receipts for the gas, the parking fee, even a timestamp from the hospital's visitor log. Everything documented, everything reasonable. When my turn came, I explained the harassment, the manipulation, the way she'd appeared knowing exactly when we'd be there. Both accounts were completely different, yet both of us believed we were telling the absolute truth. The social worker took notes, her expression neutral, impossible to read. My old Facebook posts started surfacing in the court filing. Posts from when I was 17, 18, complaining about babies crying in restaurants, swearing I'd never have kids, making jokes about how children were parasites. Teenage sarcasm transformed into legal evidence of my unsuitability as a mother. Mother's lawyer had screenshot everything, organized it chronologically, highlighted the most damaging phrases. My own words from years ago now threatened my present. During the first supervised visit, my daughter reached for Alicia immediately. She'd spent so much time rubbing my belly during pregnancy, talking to the baby, playing music against my skin. My daughter seemed to recognize her voice, her touch. Alicia had been practicing saying mama for weeks, repeating it over and over during the visit. When my daughter finally babbled something that sounded close, Alicia burst into tears of joy. The supervisor made a note. I watched my sister hold my child, saw the desperation in her eyes, the genuine love mixed with something darker. The apartment building's nanny cam footage became another weapon. The camera in the lobby caught me stumbling home after those sleepless nights, struggling with the stroller, looking exhausted beyond measure. What it didn't capture was the crying baby, the ear infection, the 3 hours of soothing that preceded each stumble. But on video, I looked intoxicated. My exhausted swaying became evidence of substance abuse. The timestamp showed 3 a.m. What kind of mother had her baby out at that hour? I tried presenting evidence of my past medical exploitation to family court, thinking it would show a pattern of abuse. The judge dismissed it as irrelevant to my current fitness as a parent. My childhood donations, the kidney surgery, the bone marrow, none of it mattered legally. The court only cared about the present, about whether I could provide a stable environment now. My history as a spare parts factory was just that, history. Alicia's Instagram account revealed more than she realized before she made it private. I'd screenshot everything in a desperate moment, including posts about her psychiatric holds, her obsession with baby names dating back years, her collection of infant clothes bought long before I was even pregnant. The final visible post asked if aunts could get custody rights, but even this evidence felt like a violation, using her mental health struggles against her. The church newsletter became a timeline of Mother's campaign. Prayer requests appeared weekly, carefully worded pleas for family reconciliation and wisdom in difficult times. Reading between the lines, I could see her strategy unfolding, first establishing concern, then escalating to crisis, finally positioning herself as the stable solution. The congregation rallied around her, unaware they were soldiers in her war. The court-ordered therapy sessions became another minefield. Exhausted and frustrated, I made the mistake of being too honest with the therapist. When she asked about my darkest thoughts, I admitted that sometimes I understood why people ran away with their babies, why they disappeared in the night. I wasn't planning anything, just expressing the desperation that came with feeling trapped. But therapists are mandated reporters. My moment of honesty became another document in the file against me. I tried recording Mother's threats during one of her visits to the daycare parking lot. She'd wait there at 4 p.m. just hoping for a glimpse of her grandbaby, she said. But she'd time her words carefully, making veiled threats only when we were alone. Mother dating the elderly neighbor for spy access while delivering soup and meds. That's playing chess while everyone else is stuck on checkers. Evil genius meets Meals on Wheels with a side of surveillance. This time I was ready, phone recording in my pocket. But the storage was full. Hundreds of photos and videos of my daughter had eaten up every bite. Mother saw the notification flash on my screen and smiled. She knew I'd tried and failed. The daycare worker who'd witnessed Mother's behavior, who'd seen her try to sign my daughter out without permission, chose silence when investigators came calling. An anonymous complaint had been filed about her teaching credentials, questioning some discrepancy in her background check. The timing was too convenient. She had student loans, a family to support. She pulled me aside one day, apologized with her eyes, but said nothing that could help my case. I started noticing Mother wearing Alicia's maternity clothes to court appearances. The same lavender cardigan my sister had worn while pregnant, convinced it would bring luck. The same dress she'd bought for her phantom baby shower years ago. Mother moved through the courthouse like a grieving grandmother, every outfit chosen to evoke sympathy. She'd spray Alicia's perfume, the scent my daughter had known in the womb. Mother made an offer through her lawyer. Drop the petition if I agreed to a co-parenting arrangement with Alicia as a second mother. Regular overnight visits, shared holidays, joint decision-making on everything from education to medical care. It was presented as generous, a compromise that would give my daughter an extended support system. My refusal was documented as selfishly denying my child access to family resources and love. The real shock came when I discovered the truth about the legal papers. Going through documents my lawyer had obtained, I found handwritten notes in the margins. The writing wasn't Mother's, it was Alicia's. She had initiated this, researched grandparents' rights, found the lawyers. Mother was the weapon, but Alicia had pulled the trigger. All this time I'd thought Mother was the mastermind, but my sister's desperation had started everything. Lewis's betrayal ran deeper than I'd known. His new girlfriend reached out through Facebook thinking I should know the truth. She'd found our old text messages on his phone. He'd been screenshotting our conversations for months before the breakup, sending them to Mother. Every argument about keeping the baby, every moment of doubt I'd expressed, every financial worry, all documented and shared. He'd been building their case while still sharing my bed. The girlfriend revealed more. She'd been with Lewis for over a year, overlapping with our relationship. The pregnancy had been his excuse to finally end things with me, but now he wanted to modify child support, claimed financial hardship. Fighting custody and support battles simultaneously meant choosing which court dates to prioritize, which lawyer fees to pay first. I missed my WIC appointment during a particularly bad week of legal meetings. One missed appointment and I was marked non-compliant in the system. Another mark against me, another piece of evidence that I couldn't manage basic responsibilities. The formula and food assistance I desperately needed became harder to access. Every system designed to help became another place where I could fail, be documented as failing. My credit cards maxed out paying the lawyer's retainer, $200 an hour, billed in 6-minute increments. Every phone call, every email, every document reviewed. The costs mounted faster than I could track. Meanwhile, Mother used money raised through church fundraisers, ostensibly for Alicia's medical expenses, to pay her legal team. The congregation thought they were helping a sick woman, not funding a custody battle. The confrontation at my daughter's baptism shattered something in our family's facade. I'd chosen a different church, trying to create new traditions, but Mother found out, showed up with Alicia and half their prayer group. The elderly priest, who'd known our family for decades, tried to mediate. Mother's accusations echoed through the sanctuary. I was denying her granddaughter a proper religious upbringing, baptizing anointing her in a strange church out of spite. The ceremony continued, but the priest's hands shook as he performed the blessing. I lost my coffee shop job after Mother's daily visits drove away regular customers. She'd come in during the morning rush, order a single tea, and sit for hours. She'd tell anyone who'd listen about her wayward daughter, her poor, sick eldest girl who just wanted to be a mother. Customers started avoiding the shop to avoid the drama. My manager had no choice. Business was suffering. The girl who replaced me was from Alicia's IVF support group, which felt like more than coincidence. 3 nights sleeping in my car with a baby, while Mother posted photos from inside my former apartment. She'd convinced the landlord she was helping me clean that I'd asked her to handle things while I dealt with my mental health. The photos showed her organizing baby clothes, scrubbing the kitchen, being the devoted mother she claimed to be. I parked in a 24-hour Walmart lot, nursed my daughter in the back seat, used the bathroom to wash bottles, but I couldn't report it. Officially, I still had an apartment. On paper, nothing was wrong. Dad finally broke his silence when I ran into him at the pharmacy. He was picking up Alicia's medications, a bag full of psychiatric prescriptions. His words came out in a rush, like he'd been holding them back for years. He begged me to let Alicia be happy, just this once. Hadn't we all sacrificed enough? Hadn't I given enough? His eyes were hollow, exhausted from decades of managing one daughter's illness and another's donations. He wasn't choosing sides, he said. He just wanted peace. I started investigating Lewis's involvement more deeply, following the money trail through his bank statements. His new girlfriend helped, furious about his deception, but every piece of evidence we found implicated her too. She'd been with him longer than either of us had known. Her relationship imploded when the full timeline of his lies came out during questioning. I watched another woman's life unravel because of my fight, but I couldn't stop. I needed every piece of evidence. Jenny asked the question I'd been avoiding during one exhausted phone call. What if the baby really would be better off with them? The words hung between us, heavy with implication. I couldn't immediately answer, couldn't reflexively deny what seemed obvious. They had money, stability, a house with a yard. I had a maxed out credit card and a car that doubled as a bedroom. The silence stretched until she apologized, but the question remained. I made a strategic decision to publicly admit I'd considered adoption initially. Better to control that narrative than have it discovered. I posted in the single mothers group about my journey from uncertainty to determination, how questioning motherhood was normal, but choosing it daily was what mattered. The post was screenshot within hours, reframed as evidence of my indecisiveness. But at least I'd said it first. Hospital records revealed something I'd missed during pregnancy. Alicia had been hospitalized for pregnancy delusions months before I conceived. She'd convinced herself she was pregnant, bought maternity clothes, started a registry. The psychiatric hold lasted 72 hours. The timing was damning. Her breakdown had created the perfect storm for when I accidentally got pregnant. I'd become her miracle by default. Mother's lawyer filed an emergency motion to advance the trial date, citing the deteriorating situation. My lawyer had food poisoning that week, could barely stand for the hearing. We asked for a postponement but were denied. The system moved forward relentlessly, every delay working against me. Time was Mother's ally. The longer this dragged on, the more evidence of instability she could collect. Reading through Alicia's therapy records, subpoenaed for the case, revealed the depth of her fixation. She didn't just want a baby. She wanted to be the mother she'd dreamed of being since childhood illness stole her future. Every surgery, every failed treatment had crystallized this need. In her mind, my pregnancy was divine intervention, God correcting the cosmic injustice of her infertility. The delusion was complete, unshakable. I recognized the turning point when it arrived. To protect my daughter, I had to become everything I'd hated about Mother. Calculating, manipulative, strategic. The honest version of myself, the one who tried to handle this with dignity, was failing. I started documenting differently, thinking 3 moves ahead, using my daughter as bait for evidence. I hated myself for it, but self-loathing was a luxury I couldn't afford. Learning to lie convincingly became a survival skill. Small lies at first, telling Alicia I was reconsidering her offer, expressing doubt about single motherhood, admitting financial struggles that made co-parenting appealing. Each lie burned, but they opened doors. She started trusting me again, sharing her plans, revealing the extent of their preparation. During one of Alicia's manic episodes, I pretended to seriously consider co-parenting. I visited her house, let her show me the nursery she'd maintained for years. We discussed schedules, overnight visits, how to explain 2 mothers to a child. I recorded everything, gathered evidence of her instability, documented her delusions about God promising her my baby. When I finally revealed I'd been gathering evidence, something broke in her eyes. We stood in that perfect nursery, both of us crying over the empty crib, both of us destroyed by wanting the same thing. The minor victory of proving Lewis's conspiracy felt hollow. Yes, I had evidence of Mother's payments to him, labeled investment in his Venmo history. Yes, I could show he'd been feeding them information for months. But what had I won? My daughter still needed a father, however flawed. The support payments still mattered. Every victory came with collateral damage. Why would someone fill their phone with baby pictures when they know they need recording space for evidence? Something feels off about how the daycare worker suddenly had credential issues right after witnessing Mother's behavior. Mother's counterclaim gained traction with each passing week. The facts were simple. She had a stable home, financial resources, a support network. I had eviction notices, job losses, isolation. Love didn't appear on financial statements. Devotion couldn't be quantified in court documents. The best interests of the child standard favored everything I couldn't provide. Everything narrowed to the psychiatric evaluation. 3 different professionals would assess all parties, Mother, Alicia, and me. Our fitness, our stability, our capacity to parent. The whole case would likely turn on these reports. I prepared obsessively, researching optimal answers, practicing emotional regulation. But how do you prepare to have your soul examined by strangers who held your future in their clipboards? The evaluation sessions stretched across several weeks. Questions about my childhood, my relationship with my family, my feelings about the donations. They asked about my support system, my plans for the future, my mental health history. Every answer felt like a trap. Too honest and I'd seem unstable. Too perfect and I'd seem deceptive. I walked the tightrope of appearing competent but human, strong but not rigid. Alicia's evaluation revealed the full extent of her break from reality. She truly believed God had promised her this baby, that my pregnancy was a divine gift meant for her. The delusion was elaborate, complete with signs and prophecies she'd interpreted from scripture. But delusion born from grief was sympathetic. The evaluators noted her pain, her loss, her desperate love. Mother's evaluation was masterful. She presented as the concerned grandmother, the stable matriarch trying to hold her family together. She admitted no wrongdoing, expressed only love and worry. Every manipulation was reframed as support, every threat as concern. She'd spent decades perfecting this performance. I called in my only remaining favor, mother, Brenda, the nurse who delivered my daughter. She provided an affidavit about the birth, how mother had tried to take the baby before the cord was cut, how she'd had to be removed from the delivery room. But Brenda wouldn't testify in person. Her immigration status was complicated, her fear of authority absolute. A written statement was all she could give. The records revealed Alicia had been planning the nursery since I was 15. Every detail meticulously chosen, updated yearly, waiting for a baby that never came. The timeline was heartbreaking. She'd been preparing to be a mother longer than I'd been an adult. In her mind, she'd been waiting for my daughter before I even knew I could have children. Lewis's Venmo history became crucial evidence. The payments from mother started months before our breakup, small amounts labeled as investments, loans, gifts. The pattern was clear. She'd been funding his exit strategy, ensuring he'd leave when the time was right. But proving conspiracy required showing intent, and mother had been careful. Everything could be explained away as family helping family. The final phase of evidence gathering broke something in me. I realized winning meant accepting that Alicia might never recover from this loss. She'd pinned everything on becoming a mother, built her entire identity around this dream. Taking that away might destroy her completely, but keeping my daughter meant accepting that consequence. I committed to protecting my daughter despite the cost, not just to me, but to everyone caught in this web. Sarah's marriage strained to breaking, the daycare worker who couldn't speak up, dad drowning in medication costs and guilt, even Lewis's girlfriend, whose life I'd inadvertently destroyed. We were all casualties of love weaponized as ownership. The church divided over the scandal. Half supported mother's version, the selfless grandmother trying to save a baby from an unstable mother. Half saw through the manipulation, recognized the pattern of control. The congregation that had been our extended family throughout childhood split into factions. Friendships ended, ministries dissolved. The prayer chain became a battlefield. Mother's overconfidence finally created an opening. During her guardian ad litem interview, she claimed I'd agreed to adoption in writing, that she had documentation. It was a lie too far, too specific, too easy to disprove. When challenged to produce this evidence, she fabricated a document. But her handwriting was distinctive, her printer trackable. The forgery was obvious. I presented the forged document to the court without gloating, maintaining what dignity remained. The guardian ad litem's expression changed as she examined it, compared it to known samples of mother's writing. The woman who'd presented as stable, reasonable, concerned, had created false evidence. Everything she'd said was now suspect. The court ordered an investigation into the forgery. Suddenly, mother was playing defense. Her lawyers scrambled to explain, to minimize, to reframe. But forgery was criminal, not just unethical. The possibility of charges hung over everything. The power dynamic shifted for the first time in months. Both sides prepared for the final hearing with exhausted determination. Mother's team would argue the forgery was a desperate act of love, that I'd driven her to it. My team would show the pattern of manipulation, the systematic campaign to steal my child. Alicia's mental state would be examined, her fitness questioned. We'd all be stripped bare in court, our pain made public record. The weight of what was coming pressed down on all of us. This wasn't just about custody anymore. Criminal charges were possible. Alicia's fragile stability hung by a thread. The church community was in ruins, and at the center of it all, my daughter played with her toys, unaware that her entire future was being decided by strangers in robes. The records revealed Alicia had been planning the nursery since I was 15 years old. Every tiny outfit, every stuffed animal, positioned exactly where she'd dreamed. The receipts went back over a decade. She'd been collecting baby items before I'd even finished high school. The timeline devastated me. My sister had been preparing for motherhood longer than I'd been an adult. Court documents showed Alicia's breakdown coincided perfectly with my pregnancy announcement. Mother's shared calendar app revealed everything. Alicia had been tracking my visits, my cycles, waiting for any sign I might provide the baby she desperately wanted. The evidence painted a picture of obsession spanning years. Lewis's Venmo history exposed the final piece. Mother's payments to him, all labeled investment, started 3 months before our breakup. Small amounts at first, then larger sums as my pregnancy progressed. The money trail proved conspiracy, but also revealed how deep their collective delusion ran. They'd all convinced themselves they were saving my baby from me. I realized winning meant accepting Alicia might never recover from losing this hope. She'd built her entire identity around becoming a mother. Taking that dream away could destroy her completely. But I looked at my daughter playing with her secondhand toys and knew I had to protect her, even if it meant breaking my sister's heart permanently. The commitment to fight meant becoming someone I barely recognized. I used my daughter as bait for evidence, documented every interaction with cold calculation, thought 3 moves ahead like mother had taught me through years of manipulation. The honest version of myself had failed. This new version might succeed. Mother's overconfidence during the guardian ad litem interview changed everything. She claimed I'd agreed to adoption in writing, said she had documentation. When challenged to produce this evidence, she panicked and created a forgery. Her distinctive handwriting, the printer metadata, the paper stock, everything traceable. She'd finally made a mistake too big to explain away. I presented the forged document to the court without emotion, maintaining dignity in the face of her lies. The guardian ad litem examined it carefully, comparing it to known samples of mother's writing. The woman who'd presented herself as the stable, concerned grandmother had fabricated evidence. Every claim she'd made was now suspect. The court ordered an immediate investigation into the forgery. Mother's lawyers scrambled to minimize the damage, but forgery was criminal. The possibility of charges shifted the entire dynamic. For the first time in months, mother was playing defense instead of offense. The courtroom filled with familiar faces, church members, the single mothers group, social services staff who'd followed our case. My daughter reached for me from the guardian's arms, and I saw mother's hand tremor match my own exhausted swaying. We'd both been destroyed by this battle, both of us shadows of who we'd been. Mother's trembling increased as the truth emerged through medical records and text messages. The psychiatric evaluations revealed everything. Her systematic campaign, Alicia's delusions, my desperate attempts to protect my child. Each piece of evidence built the larger picture of generational trauma disguised as love. The church elder who'd managed mother's fundraising testified about the money raised under false pretenses. He'd thought he was helping a grieving grandmother reunite with her grandchild. Instead, he'd been funding a custody battle built on lies. His disappointment was visible as he described how mother had manipulated the congregation's generosity. The judge ordered psychiatric holds for Alicia after her evaluation revealed the depth of her break from reality. She truly believed God had promised her my baby, that my pregnancy was divine intervention meant to correct her infertility. The delusion was complete, supported by years of magical thinking and enabled by mother's manipulation. The handwriting expert confirmed what we already knew. The adoption document documents were forged. The pattern suggested long-term planning, not a momentary lapse in judgment. Mother had been preparing false evidence for weeks, maybe months. The forgery wasn't desperation, it was calculation. Evidence proved the conspiracy, but also revealed the family's shared delusion. They'd all convinced themselves they were rescuing my baby from an unfit mother. The truth was darker. They'd created the very instability they claimed to be saving her from. Every crisis had been manufactured, every struggle orchestrated. Alicia's breakdown in court shattered the last pretense. She screamed about God's promise, about the baby meant for her, about the years of waiting. Security had to restrain her as she lunged toward my daughter. The woman I'd grown up protecting, whose medical needs had defined my childhood, was completely lost to her obsession. The judge asked if I wanted to pursue criminal charges against Mother. I looked at the woman who'd raised me to be spare parts, who'd tried to steal my child, who'd destroyed our family with her manipulation. I thought about justice versus mercy, about what example I wanted to set for my daughter. I chose probation with mandatory therapy over prison time. Mother needed help, not just punishment. The decision wasn't about forgiveness. It was about breaking the cycle. My daughter would grow up seeing accountability with compassion, not revenge disguised as justice. Full custody was awarded to me with restraining orders against the entire family. The judge's decision was comprehensive. No contact until my daughter turned 18 and could choose for herself. The order included provisions preventing them from contacting her through third parties or social media. The church congregation split over the scandal. Half supported Mother's version even after the evidence, unable to reconcile the woman they knew with what she'd done. The other half felt betrayed, manipulated, used. The community that had been our extended family throughout childhood fractured beyond repair. I started rebuilding with a new job at a small bakery that offered flexible hours for single parents. The owner, herself a custody battle survivor, understood the importance of stability. The pay wasn't much, but it was honest work with people who didn't judge my past. Subsidized housing came through after months on the waiting list. A 2-bedroom apartment in a different part of town, far from Mother's reach. The neighbors were mostly single mothers like me, all of us building new lives from the wreckage of old ones. We formed our own support network, watching each other's children, sharing resources and strength. Other custody battle survivors reached out through the single mothers group, women who'd fought their own versions of this war, who understood the exhaustion and trauma. We met weekly in the community center, our children playing while we processed what survival had cost us. The legal protections were comprehensive, sealed records to prevent harassment, an interstate custody decree preventing any challenge to the ruling. My daughter was finally, legally, permanently mine. No more threats, no more fear of losing her. The paper felt heavier than any court document should. I enrolled in online classes to finish my degree, studying during naps and after bedtime. The financial aid office helped navigate grants for single mothers. Education became my path forward, a way to build the stable future my daughter deserved. My daughter started walking at 13 months, taking her first steps in our new apartment. I was the only one there to see it, to celebrate this milestone. No mother claiming credit, no Alicia crying about missing it. Just us, building our life one step at a time. The restraining order violation started 6 months later. Mother sent letters through mutual acquaintances, had church members accidentally run into me at the grocery store. Each violation was documented, reported, added to her probation requirements. She couldn't help herself, control was her addiction. Alicia's psychiatric treatment progressed slowly. The reports I received through my lawyer showed glimpses of recognition, moments where she understood what had happened, but mostly she remained lost in her delusion, waiting for God to deliver the baby she'd been promised. I found a therapist who specialized in family trauma and medical abuse. Twice a month, I sat in her office and unpacked 22 years of being harvested for parts. The kidney donation, the bone marrow, the blood draws, all of it examined not as God's plan, but as exploitation disguised as love. My daughter thrived in daycare, hitting every milestone on schedule. The teachers commented on her resilience, her joy, her ability to trust despite our rocky start. She had no memory of the custody battle, no trauma from the family war. I'd protected her from that at least. 2 years later, I watched my daughter play at the park, her laughter carrying across the playground. Through the fence, I could see Alicia standing at the mandated distance, watching the child she still believed was meant for her. Mother stood beside her, both of them ghosts of the family we'd once been. We were all survivors of love, weaponized as ownership. Justice had been achieved through persistence and evidence. My daughter and I were protected by law and distance. The court had acknowledged the truth even if my family never would. Healing was possible, but the scars were permanent. I pushed my daughter on the swing, her delighted squeals drowning out the past. We'd built a new life on the foundation of hard-won freedom. She would never be anyone's spare parts, never doubt her worth, never question whether she was wanted for herself alone. That was my gift to her. The childhood I never had, the love I'd fought to give. All right, that was something. Appreciate you sticking around while I tried to wrap my head around all of it. Definitely a ride. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.